And I think that's one of the things that really saps our energy is all the worries, all the concerns. Can I do this? And I think that's coming from me over time with these books. God has just showed up again and again and again. Yeah, I always have kind of a list in my mind of eventually I want to get to this book, or I have ideas. I have half-written proposals. I have a chapter here on something. So those things are kind of always floating around. When parents come in over and over and ask for a specific thing, like recently, in the last couple of years, is do you have anything for early readers? And then my mind starts like, well, what can I do?
All right, everyone, welcome to the Writers Bloc Podcast. I'm so excited to welcome Tricia Goyer today. She is a USA Today bestselling and award-winning author of, get this, more than 85 books that span historical fiction, Christian living, parenting, and children's literature. Her work has earned multiple honors, including 2 Carol Awards, and she is known for her well-researched historical novels. Beyond writing, Tricia is a speaker, a mentor, a longtime homeschool educator, wife, and also a mom of 10 and a grandmother. Wow. Her life and work are shaped by her faith and her passion for family, storytelling, and helping others pursue their calling. You can learn more and connect with Tricia on her website, which is triciagoyer.com. And today we're going to be talking about eliminating brain power thieves to fuel our writing. And given that intro, perhaps there's no one better to talk to us about that than Tricia. So welcome to the podcast, Tricia Goyer.
Thank you, Cara. It's so great to be here.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. And man, I was, just getting ready and preparing for this conversation today and just kind of looking at the expanse of what you've done. And like everything's a lot of kids, a lot of books,
It's over the top, all of it.
a lot of podcasts. I mean, you've just done it and are doing it all. So we would like to hear more. Tell us more about what like life looks like for you, what your writing life, maybe a little bit about the behind the scenes journey so far.
Absolutely. Well, the behind the scenes is I wanted to become a writer when I was just a mom of a little toddler. I was sitting in the church nursery with my friend Cindy, and she mentioned that she was working on her first novel, and like my heart lit up like, oh my goodness, I want to do that. So I never went to college and studied creative writing. I've just always been a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling mom. I started going to writers conferences, meeting with editors, and basically going home and just doing what they said. I got lots of rejections. My first article came out in 1995, my first book in 1999. Got my agent, she's still my agent today, Janet Grant with Books and Such, in 1997. Like she has really been there through the long haul. And really, I think a lot of it goes back to when I was a young mom, attending Bible studies. I went to Henry Blackaby's Experiencing God Bible study. And one thing that has always stuck with me that I kind of live by, it's like, see what God is doing and join him. And that has been kind of, I started with historical fiction. Then I got a contract for a book for teen moms. I was a teen mom myself. And then I started a support group for teen moms. So I wrote a book about that. Then I started homeschooling, got asked to speak, and then people would come to my booth and ask me parenting. And so then I started, so really it has come out of, if I feel messages stirring in me, or if I meet someone like, wow, that would make a great novel. All these things are kind of expand out from that. Just like see where God is at work, see what things he's stirring in my heart or in other people's hearts, exciting people that I meet. I've done some true stories with people. And so really I've learned to just say, God, just take me wherever. So I've never had the, like, this is my lane. My agent and I have tried before to like pick a lane and then something else will come up that's completely out of my lane. So really it's just like, okay, God, and that's led to our adoptions too. We adopted 7 kids. We have 3 biological. And so really it's just living every day. It's almost like an adventure, seeing what God is doing and following him, where I'll figure out plans, I'll figure out agendas, and those never really work out because something completely different will come up.
Wow. Well, that is kind of cool. It's like you can't be put quite in a box because
Right.
like the boundaries keep expanding and God keeps giving you some new opportunities. Well, I first of all just kind of want to talk to you a little bit about the scope and the size of what you're able to do. I mean, first of all, how many children do you still have at home?
We only have 2 high schoolers still at home.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
school starts tomorrow, a 10th grader and 11th grader.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I
we're
have an
like I've
11th
been
grader too.
homeschooling since 1992. Like, this has
Wow.
been a long haul of taking care of kids and homeschooling, so, yeah. So now
Amazing.
it seems like it's so easy because 'cause they're pretty independent, and I feel like, "Oh, I have all this time that I can actually work on stuff."
Yeah, well, and yeah, that's the way it's supposed to work out where you
Mhm.
start to get a little bit more margin back, but it sounds like that never really held you back in the first place. So, are you averaging still about 4 to 6 books a year? I read that somewhere. Is that correct?
It's usually, yeah, 4 to 5 books a year,
Okay.
and some of them are like children, so so
So
we're
they go a little
talking.
quicker.
Some of
Yeah.
those go a little quicker, but then some are very long historical novels. My most recent books are a 3-book series that I wrote with my son. They're World War II steampunk fiction, which was
Wow.
super fun to write with him, so that was
Yeah.
awesome. So we co-write those together, and some of my books have been co-written, so I love coming up with an idea, brainstorm. I get energy from that, from talking with people, working on a book. I love Google Docs. We work on the same document together, and I can see what they're doing, and I throw in stuff. So those are so it's not again when you say 4 to 6 books a year, like how is that possible? But like the shorter books, children's books, collaborations. But I really get energy, and it's fun. Writing is fun even after all these years. Yes, it's work. Edits are not fun sometimes, but I always say it's almost it's my creative energy that I get to do for myself. It's almost like self-care when I could sit down, I can create worlds, I can work on a project or work on things that are just floating around in my mind. When I see something, see a need, come up with a concept that can help people, then it just energizes me. So even though it's not like I'm sitting at the desk for 8 hours a day and I'm trying to, it's more, I work in spurts, I work here and there, and, it's somehow it still works out to about 4 or 5 books a year through all that.
That's amazing. Well, and so when you're producing that much, do you generally have like a long queue of books in front of you that you're getting ready to work on? Or what does that look like for you now? Because with such a long trail of work behind you, I mean, are opportunities coming to you, or are you kind of in that brainstorming mode with your agent or your publisher and kind of coming up with ideas once one project is finished and then you figure out what to do next?
Yeah, I always have kind of a list in my mind of eventually I wanna get to this book, or I have ideas. I have half-written proposals. I have a chapter here on something. So those things are kinda always floating around. One thing is when I speak at homeschool conferences, because we sell thousands of books in my booth at homeschool conferences, when parents come in over and over and ask for a specific thing, like
Mm,
recently in the last couple of years, is do you have anything for early readers? Which I write World War II historical. I've recently steampunk. I have a self-care book coming out with Whitaker House next spring. So those are kind of in the works. But when someone's coming up and multiple people come up and are asking, then my mind starts like, well, what can I do? And so those I'm actually probably maybe gonna self-publish. I have 2.5 books written. So some of it is publishers will approach my agent. Some of it is I'll have an idea that I'll put a proposal together. My agent sends it out. I was just at a conference recently, the Realm Makers Conference, which is speculative fiction Christian writers conference, and I got to talk with some editors there, and actually sat in a panel of children's editors. There's 3 different editors there from David C. Cook, from Tyndale House, and from Multnomah, and they were saying, this is what we would love to see.
mm.
And afterwards, because I've worked with one other, so I'm like, what about this? And she's like, oh my goodness, that's exactly. So I'm very much aware of kind of what's out there, what's being published, what people are asking for. And so in my mind, I kind of just piecing it together. So like currently I've already had 2 books released this year. I have one book where I have a marketing call next week for my book that comes out in April. I have a novel that I've co-written, an Amish novel that I'm working on edit. So it's a little bit here and a little bit there all the time. But when it gets closer to like, oh my goodness, I have a book due in a month and a half, all that other stuff kind of will have to go to the side and
Go
then
on
I
the
just
back burner.
focus
Yeah.
on that one thing.
Wow. Well, I can imagine as a mom of 10 and a homeschooler, you're used to little fragments. You're probably used
Mhm.
to a lot of interruptions and, getting squeezing in time when you can. I think about like as you're talking about that, that's like I am like I kind of dive into something, one thing, and other things like feel super heavy and like I can't deal with that right now. But it sounds to me like what you do is you entertain and juggle a lot of plates all at the same time. So I
Yeah,
that's
and
that's amazing.
I think being open and curious and just jotting an idea down and kind of like keeping those things like I have note cards. I have note cards. It's all over my desk. I have all these little note cards with all these little notes. So just write a note down, write an
Yeah.
idea down, start brainstorming. And then when conversations come up with someone, I'm like, oh, I had an idea about that. And I really did have an idea about that. And so I think it's giving yourself permission to it's enough to just write that down, put it on a note card on your desk. Or sometimes I'll email my agent, like, hey, I have an idea. And she's like, that's a good idea. I won't even work on it, but maybe she's talking with an editor at a
It's
different
just a
thing.
bug in her
It's
ear
just a
that
bug
she's
in her
yeah,
ear. And so I
yeah,
think part of it is it could be overwhelming if I like had to try to balance all those things at the same
right,
time.
yeah.
But it's like I get it down and then I could just go back to what I need to work on. But I think the more you kind of like I pump the creativity, I let myself think, I listen to people, the more it's again, that's how it stays fun. And then when it comes closer to deadline, that's what I really have to like focus down on esping.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta buckle down and get a little more focused at that time.
Mhm, mhm.
Amy asks, "How do you keep track of then all the note cards on your desk?
There's really no
Do
keeping
you have a
track. There's
system?"
just like a pile here. So I have like just a pile of all these little note cards. And so I keep a little in fact I need to get some more out. I just keep a little blank things of blank ones there and I'll just jot things down. And then once in a while, like, where was that note that I that I had about that thing? But at least
All
it's like
works
gets
for
it out of
you.
my mind. At least it gets it out of my mind that
Yeah.
I don't have to keep remembering that thing. It's just like it's on my desk. Maybe I'll come back to it. Maybe it won't. But it is that again, if something keeps coming back in conversation, so I talk to a friend or they bring that subject up, those are the hints that God is at work there. And I need to like kind of lean into that more.
I love that. I love that. I think that's so important too for us just to keep our ears to the ground,
Mhm.
for ideas. I mean, I think maybe some people have no problem ideating new thoughts and new book ideas, and then some other people, we have to work. I am one of the people that I have to work a little bit harder to kind of formulate an idea, but journaling helps me do that too. Like
Yes. Yes.
just like hearing a something and the day and just writing that down and going back and noticing patterns and things like that. So I think that's really helpful. Well, you've also done quite a few collaborations. I've noticed with some pretty well-known authors like Max Lucado, Ken Blanchard, Robin Jones Gunn, Mike Yorkie, and some others. Tell us a little bit about how those things come about. Is that something a work of your agent on your behalf, or are you particularly like soliciting these particular authors because they are good at a particular topic and can speak really well into it? What does that look like?
Yeah, they all come from different ways. And so Robin Jones Gunn, when I mentioned that my friend Cindy, we wanted to write books. We went to our first writers conference, and Robin Jones Gunn was a speaker at one of those conferences, and we met her. And I don't know why, but she just took me under her little wing, my little Robin's wing. And
Great.
so was doing writing the Christine Miller series. I think she had just started doing some of the Palisade series. So she was this published author, but we had a prayer group of ladies over email. There's no social media at this time. This is the 90s. We would send prayer requests, and she just kind of mentored me. I would read her books for her and then give her feedback. So, And then later when I started writing stuff, she would give me feedback. So Robin Jones Gunn has been a mentor for years. We said it'd be great to do something together. And I mentioned before that I was a teen mom. Being around her, she vacations at our home. Like, we became friends. She talked about, like, before she got married, she had a box of letters that she wrote to her future husband. And we were actually at a retreat that my agent put on, and I was laying by the pool taking a nap because my homeschool kids were all home. I was like, I was relaxing, and she was on the next little lounge chair next to me. All of a sudden I woke up. I'm like, Robin, I know what we need to write, and
Hmm.
praying for your future husband. So it was like, she's
Mm.
like, yes, that's it. And so a lot of these things form from relationships with just friends as we're coming up with ideas. The one with Ken Blanchard, I loved his work. He wrote Lead Like Jesus, also The 1 Minute Manager. And I knew someone that knew him. And I just mentioned to them, like, hey, if you ever talk to Ken, like, I really think his book Lead Like Jesus would be great for families. This is all about businesses, but how can we lead our families like Jesus? And
Mm.
she brought it up to him, and he says, let's talk. Suddenly we're on the line with the publishers, and it just happened like that. So I guess, and that's another thing too, I really trust, going back to see what God is doing and join him, that if something's going to happen, like, God sees the finished book on himself. So I don't
Mm.
get up in my head. I'm not like, oh my goodness, what is this person going to think? It's just like, well, we'll just throw it out there. If it happens, it doesn't happen. The one was Max Lucado, the publisher, actually approached me and asked me if I would do a book
Mm.
with him, the teen version, because I had worked on other books for teenagers. And so it's always like, I always have this like open hand, like, okay, whatever's out there. Um, there have been like bigger things that haven't happened. Like, one of my fiction series, we had actually a contract with Netflix that was going to be this
Wow.
really big TV show series. And then the last signature didn't happen because they were turning towards more dark things, which we see now.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, like, so it's kind of like that. I'll just step forward. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, just trusting God with whatever it is. And I think part of it is, because I have lots of ideas and lots of kids, and I don't have time to like obsess about one thing. Like, that was really cool when we thought the Netflix was going to happen, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh my goodness, my whole career is based on this. It was like, if it happens, it's great. If it doesn't happen, that's okay too. And just kind of
I love
doing
that.
whatever steps, whatever doors God opens, and then trusting that if he puts something in front of me, that he sees the finished book, and he's going to be there with every step of the way. Because, like, even these World War II steampunk books that I did with my son, I've never written steampunk
Yeah, I don't
fantasy
even
type.
know
Yeah.
what is that. I know that, like, I know the fashion style of
Yeah.
steampunk, but what is that in
Okay,
terms
so
of
steampunk
literary?
is, it's if the steam age had continued, all the steam powered machines would be, instead of like what we have now with technology. So in World War II, the Nazis, so it's like robots, airships, steam powered vehicles. Our Nazis have spider tanks, so they're big spider machines that crawl through the streets.
Mm.
There's a big robot. There's flying ships. So it's kind of taking a little bit of sci-fi with like Victorian era steam machines and things, and putting them together.
Ah,
It's like this
yeah,
whole genre that I didn't even realize until
but
I
now
went to the
you
conference.
do.
But now I do, and it's so fun. It was so fun. So the publisher actually, so Steve Lobby owns Enclave Publishing, and I met him at the conference. And the first time I went, I just went with this conference with my son because he wanted to write sci-fi fantasy. And I've known Steve since 1994. We were both at Mount Hermon together. It was his first year. It was my second year. I was pregnant with my son that I wrote these books with. I was pregnant with him at that conference. And, Steve's like, come over and write. He says, come to the dark side, the sci-fi fantasy. And I'm like, Steve, like, I write Amish in World War II. Like, what in the
Yeah,
world?
so
But again,
different.
it's like those little seeds, like, what would I write? And then I love Prague. My daughter lives in Czech Republic. So I was thinking of some of their legends, and suddenly, again, those little seeds. And so Steve's like, okay, yeah, we're going to publish this. He's like, can you pull it off? I'm like, I don't know. So he gave me a contract. I hadn't even written anything yet. I just had the idea. And afterwards, he's like, you did it. You pulled it off. So if I would have like obsessed over, I don't know, this is a new genre, I don't know if I could work on that. I trusted Nathan. He reads that genre. I did a lot of research. I had a lot of fun with it, and the books turned out so fun. So it really is, and I think that's one of the things that really saps our energy is all the worries, all the concerns. Can I do this? And I think that's coming from me over time with these books. God has just showed up again and again and again. So, for example, I was working on, I think it was book 5 or 6 of my novels, and it was in the Spanish Civil War. So this is pre-World War II in Spain, and the Nazis were actually bombing. The Germans were bombing in Spain even before World War II started. And so I was trying to find out more about these planes and what they were bombing. And I had a scene with a German pilot who needs to crash land this plane. And I couldn't find any information. And so I'm like, there's only 100 of these planes that ever bombed over Spain. So I'm like, God, you were there in 1938 in Spain,
True.
or 1936,
Yes.
like, you know what was going on. And so I just prayed. And during this time, I was getting an email from this guy named Norm Goyer, and he was doing, this is before like Ancestry was online and stuff. He saw my email. He was like trying to work on his genealogy. He was trying to find out if we were related. And I'm like, this is my husband, like, it's my married name, but I was checking with my father-in-law, and we couldn't find any way this Norm Goyer and I were related. But he was in his 80s. I'm like, hey Norm, what were you doing during World War II? He's like, I was
Right.
a pilot. I'm like,
No
oh,
way.
well, I'm working on this book right now,
Oh my gosh.
and I need information about these planes. I'm like, have you ever heard of these planes? Because, well, I was actually in World War II. I never flew. I was trained, but the war ended before I went to Europe and flew. But I became an editor of a flight magazine, and I have actually flown one of the planes. So, like, it's
Oh
like one of
my
those things.
gosh.
So I'm like,
Only
if
the Lord
God,
can do that.
yes,
That's
if God
amazing.
brings it there, he can do it. And I think so many times we get so worried, we get so stressed, we get so concerned of our talents, our skills, what we can do. And we're like, this is God. Like, he can do
That is so
anything.
cool.
He can bring anyone. So again, whether it's like, oh, here, go write some fantasy steampunk with spiritual warfare books. Okay. Like, it's just wherever God, I feel like God is definitely opening doors, which also there's times where I've had publishers approach me. I'd they wanted me to do some Amish novels and some novellas, and I had already written for them. Like, of course, this would be great. And I woke up in the middle of the night and just felt this pressure on my chest, like, you didn't even pray about it. And prayed and felt like, no, this is not, and had no reason why. Well, at the time I was a caregiver for my grandma, and the following months she needed a lot of care, and
Mhm.
there would have been no way I would have done that. So again, the more we like look to God, pray, he will show us kind of what doors to walk through.
Mhm.
And then also I just pray, like, if there's something I'm not supposed to do, just make it clear, and he has before.
That's amazing. I love those. I love those stories. I mean, it just makes life an adventure when you're a believer with open hands to the Lord, and you're just like, Lord, I'll write historical steampunk fiction, and then I'll write Amish fiction. Like, I'll just do whatever you put
Then I'll write
before
some
me.
little third grade mysteries. Okay,
Right.
this will be
Yes.
fine. It'll all work out.
I mean, it kinda defies all branding logic and wisdom of the modern day,
Absolutely.
you know? But that's
Yes.
why I love it, is that God is just making it work for you, and maybe that'll help some other
And what
listeners
I
who are
was
like, "I need to find my lane." Well, maybe not. Maybe just do
Yeah.
whatever God puts before you.
And I think it's really helped me speaking at homeschool conferences, because families come in, they have high schoolers all the way down to babies, like some of these families. And
Right,
so they don't ever say, like, why didn't you just stay in your lane of historical fiction? They're like, oh, cool. My daughter loves these novels. Oh, there's a parenting book for me. There's a devotional for my kids. Like, they just come in and just they trust me. They
right.
trust my heart. They trust that my romance novels, I would say they get one kiss at the end. And the relationship with God
Sweet.
is just as strong as the relationship with the guy. Like, my novels are very clearly more about growing in God, and then, yeah, there's this guy, and you get one kiss at the end. So homeschool families love that. Like, I kind of know
Your
other
audience.
families like me and kind of
Yeah,
know the priorities. And so they just come in and they're like, oh, we'll take this and this and this and this. And they never say, like, why did you write in all these genres? It doesn't even cross their mind, because
right.
they're not a publisher. They're just a
Yeah.
family looking for resources.
I love that. Yeah, because that's what your audience is asking for, and you're providing them with a whole gamut of resources from the crib and all the way up into
That's
adulthood
what
as
I need to
well.
have, like, a slogan, "From the
Yeah,
crib to the
to the
grave." I
grave,
don't
because you
know.
did caregiving too, right? So
Mhm,
it's like
yeah.
from the
I'm
cradle to the
still doing
grave.
caregiving. My grandma passed away last year, so a year ago, but then my husband's parents moved in, and so they're in their 80s, and so I'm still caregiving. So, yeah, I
Wow.
mean, I could help you with your babies, help you with your old people, and everything in between. And I think the fun thing is for me, like, just like with the editor, it's like, "Come to the dark side," and he's like, "Can you pull it off?" I'm like, "I don't know. This is like an experiment right now." But then last year when I was in Branson, well, not last year, in May. In May when I was in Branson, Colton, he's in 11th grade, he came up and he
Mm.
had Breath of Bones, and he's like, "This is my favorite novel. I'm reading it for
Oh,
the 7th time through." And I'm like,
oh, that's
"Oh my
sweet.
goodness." So, like,
Makes
that
it
was
all
super
worth it.
exciting. Like, that
Yeah.
was as exciting as, like, your book made the USA Today bestseller. Like, whatever it is, not only, I was able to write with my son, but then here's this 11th grade homeschool boy that's clean, it's fun, it's interesting, and
Yeah.
he's reading it through the 7th time. So, that's the
Yeah,
fun
and
part
that's
too.
gosh, you hear those stories and you're like, "That's what it's all about,"
That's
and
yep.
that's so cool. Well, I wanna talk to you a little bit about just, like, mental bandwidth and some of the ways in which, like, you probably have to limit there has to be some things that you limit in your day-to-day life in order to produce what you produce,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
maybe overcome just the obstacles of, creating, right? Like we all kind of feel that. So, can you talk to us a little bit about how you kind of maximize your mental load and maybe what you do when you're feeling really depleted?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first thing, and this started years ago, just spending time with God in the morning, reading through the Bible. I read through the Bible every year. I mean, this has been probably 6 or 7 years now that I've just read through the Bible every year, and that's just my anchor point every single day. There's always something that God's going to speak to my heart, that's going to encourage me. My husband and I were on the same reading plan, so we're not usually reading it sitting down together, but we'll talk about it. Or did you see this? So just spending that
Mhm.
time in God's Word. I love devotional books, classics. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I'm reading one of his books on community, and it's just so encouraging. Like he died in prison. He's writing about Christian community. I mean, stuff like that just
Right.
really
Yeah.
speaks to me. But then also my health. So I've lost 90 pounds
Wow.
3 years
Congrats.
ago, and just working on eating well, exercise, go to the gym in the morning, and I purposely signed up for a gym that they have, like, classes with people half my age. So I'm
You
literally the
did that
oldest
on
in there.
purpose.
I
Okay.
did it on purpose. It's called Orange Theory. I did it
Oh,
on
I go
purpose.
to Orange Theory. Oh,
I love
fun.
it.
Me
Yeah,
too.
but I love it because I'm gonna be too easy on myself. Like, if I just went to I had other gyms that I went to that you could kinda do your own thing, and I just kinda did a little bit and left, all right? But I'm like, if I go there, there's all
Yeah.
these people that I'm
There's
trying to keep pace
accountability.
with. It's
Yeah.
accountability, and there's someone there like, yesterday morning, we had to keep a certain pace, and if we didn't, we had to go to the rowing machine, and I'm like, "Trisha, go to the rowing machine." I'm like, "What?" And all the 20-year-olds, they kept the pace, but I'm like, "All right, well, next time I'm gonna" but so I need that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's amazing taking care of myself physically, and actually I coach other people now, helping them just with encouragement in that area because the brain clarity and the just how much better I feel without the brain fog and just exhausted in the afternoon just by caring for myself where I don't eat sugar anymore. Like all those things I've
Mm,
had to figure it out because I was after we adopted all the kids especially, I was exhausted
mm,
all the time, and so I've had
mm.
to figure out, like, "Hey, what do I need to do?" So that's God's word, taking care of myself, and then keeping priority, like, with my husband. Last weekend, we just went away for the weekend. We had our older son came and stayed with our teenagers and my in-laws, and we just
Mm.
went to the Walmart museum. We went to the
What?
Crystal Bridges Museum. We went to, markets, like, we just did nothing. Like, it was just
Just
walking
played.
around, just
Yeah.
it was just played, and it was awesome. Yes, the Walmart Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas is actually
I was
super
like, "That's
interesting.
gotta be Arkansas."
Yes, we live in Arkansas. So, again, kind of figuring out those priorities, and then I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so I
Mm,
probably listen to 1 or 2 books a week, either novels or nonfiction. Again, it's like I need that entertainment. I need to get caught up in a story, So I need to kind of feed myself so I can have output to be able to do those things. And I know if I don't take time to get caught up in a little fun novel that I'm listening to, or if I don't have time to cook my husband, other things suffer. So really just making priorities, focusing on those types of things. And then again, trying to not worry about things, turn it over to God. When you have 10 kids, there's always something to pray about.
For
And I pray
sure.
about it instead of worried about it. Because
Yeah.
really, like, they're adults. I can pray about it. They know my heart. I can talk to them, but not getting overwhelmed of those types of things. And then, just really, again, what is my next thing I need to do for the next 25 minutes? And I think take saying those little writing things. So right now I'm going to work on this blog post, or I'm going to work on this chapter of a book, and just doing in 20 to 25 minutes spurts of time. That really helps me too. So I'm going to not look at my phone. I'm not going to look at my email. I'm just going to do those little spurts. And,
That's
those are the
amazing.
things that really help me.
Well, I love that how you started by answering that question by just seeking the Lord. I mean, I feel like
Mm.
that's Matthew 6:35. Seek first the kingdom of God and his
Yeah.
righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. I think that you're an example of that for us, and that it's not magic, right? It's things that we know. It's about spiritual health, it's about physical health, it's
Mm.
about relational health, and then you have all that fuel to kind of put into your creativity and into the ways in which you're showing up in the world. So I love that. I mean, sometimes I think we hear from people who've accomplished a lot and have a lot of responsibility, and we're like, what's the secret? And it's like, you just told us the secret. Like, it's like, aligning up your life that way, which is encouraging, I think. So tell us, like, are you a fast writer? Are you able to, sit down, write a chapter in a couple days? Like, what does that look like for you? Because again, like, I'm kind of fascinated by your output and thinking just through the lens of my own life and how slow I feel like I am. Are you a fast writer?
Yeah, I would say yes, but that has built over time. Just like anything that we work on over and over again, you build tools that you use. And I think I figured out what works for me. So for nonfiction, like I just finished this nonfiction book with my friend Alice Kreider. She was an editor at David C. Cook. She was my editor at Multnomah. We became friends. I hired her as a life coach for a while, and we did a book on self care that will be coming out in April. But we just said, what are the main areas of self care that moms need to talk about? And then I kind of like put it in a Google Doc. And then as I'm going through the day, oh, this is a good story about this. And I'll kind of like plop in stories, and then I'll find a quote somewhere, or a scripture verse will come up. And so when I write, it's more like plop method. I plop this in here, and I plop that in there, and I plop that in there. And Alice is plopping stuff in here and plopping stuff in there. And then after we had a lot of stuff in there, I went through and said, now what's the format? So, and I think this is the key to publishing, is publishers have certain expectations and readers have certain expectations. And so I have all these ideas, but what's the format? So we're going to open with a story. Then we're going to give 3 tips. Then we're going to have a scripture and like a spiritual application. Then we're going to have the takeaway questions. So I sat through and I said, okay, Alice, I think this is our format. And actually had a document that said opening story between 300 and 400 words, like
Mm.
3 tips, each tip's 100 words. So once we get all the creative stuff in there, we then had the format. And then that's easy, right? Then we're just look at the format and go, oh, we need another story here. So then, okay, do you want to write that story? Well, I just wrote the last one. So Alice, you write the story. So I do that with all my books. And so again, World War II steampunk. What are they expecting in this genre? Okay, this is what they're expecting. So I have all my ideas, but now I'm going to figure out the format. Children's mysteries. What's the format? So a lot of it is publishers, they have 30-day devotions, 60-day devotions, 90-day devotions. I try to write a 57-day devotion or whatever.
Right.
That
It
wouldn't work.
doesn't
So
fit.
what's
Yeah.
it's good? They're going to do a scripture. They're going to do 200 words for the personal story. They're going to do prayer. So I think that is the key. And I think I got that. I went to Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference for 14 years in a row, and I sat in all these classes. And I think that's the one thing I learned is publishers, they know what they want. And if you give them in the format they need, because they have their formats that they know sell well, but you put your creative energy and your juice and your unique stories into it, then it's an easy yes for them because you know what the readers need, you know what their format is, and then it's just filling in the blanks on that.
Yeah.
And
Do
then you don't
you
waste a lot of time
trying to
with
figure
stuff
it
that
out?
doesn't fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
People will talk about like they rewrote a novel 7 times. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
So I know the beginning, I know the turning points, I know this has to be is where this part needs to happen. And then I just fit those things in there. And so I write pretty clean. Usually don't have very many edits, which also helps me write more because I figured out the format and I figured out how to give both readers and the publishing house what they want.
Okay, that made me think of something. Do you ever feel like the formats get kind of bland? Like, do you ever feel like, oh, I want to change this up in this book? Or do you just feel like, why reinvent the wheel? Like these are,
Why reinvent the wheel?
yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think another person that really helped me is Stan Williams. He has the story no wait, what's the name of his book? I'm not gonna remember it now. The story premise. Anyway, I will find the book and send you the link. Stan Williams. But he was a screenwriter in Hollywood. And so years ago I went to one of his workshops at the American Christian Fiction Writers Conference. And he talked about the screenplays you always have on page 11. You always have this. Halfway through the movie, you're gonna have the turning point. All these things at the beginning that's happening to the character. Then you're gonna have the middle point where the character has to make a decision, then they're pushing it forward. So he talked about Rocky. He talked about all these movies, and then you're like, now I watch them. I drive my family crazy when we watch movies because all of a sudden
You
I'll
can see
see
it
what the
happening.
character when I'll see
Yeah.
the character when all of a sudden all these things are happening to them. That like all those little football shows, the kids, the the underdog football, the underdog, the Mighty Ducks. It's all the everything's happening bad. Then no, we're gonna do this. Or Rocky, I'm gonna beat Apollo Creed or whatever it is. And it's that moment. So I'll be watching. I'm like, stop, pause the movie. And my family's like, oh, I'm like, look, it's halfway through this. And so like once I learned that, all my novels, whether it's a romance novel, whether it's a steampunk novel, I know the character arc. And so once you know those things, it's what readers expect and what makes a good story. So people can say, well, my fantasy is about this, and you're like, well, readers have expectations and publishers have expectations. So I would suggest making your story fit into their expectations because no one's going to read through your 400 pages of what you thought it should be because
Yeah,
we have.
all your backstory or
Mhm.
whatever. I guess I was
Yeah.
thinking more in terms of like nonfiction, prescriptive Christian nonfiction, where it's like, should you always open with a story, then followed by a teaching, then circle back around to your story? Like, do you have thoughts about that? Because I read other books that don't always have a story
Yeah,
opener.
and I think I
So
like when Donald Miller came out with Blue Like Jazz, this is back again, aging myself back in the 90s. It was like, 'cause it was like a collection of essays. And then his collection of essays, it ended up being this huge hit. And his collection of essays, when you read the essays, you got the whole point. Like he didn't have to teach you the points, you kind of got the point. And
mm,
so there's always going to be that thing that's gonna be fresh and new that people are gonna love. Or the Prayer Jade, but it's all those years ago. This was the tiniest little book ever.
right.
And it just
I
had
remember that one.
and that ended up being like this again, another huge thing. So I will say there are gonna be all of a sudden everyone's gonna wanna do that, right? Right? So there is that chance to do those things. But then again, when readers, they just love the same type of format. There's a reason why certain books sell a certain way. I just did
Yeah.
a parenting book, Faith That Sticks, and it was 5 ways to disciple your preteen. And I feel like sometimes we're saying the same things, but also there's a new generation of readers that need our stories, that need our hope, that need things
Yeah.
retold in a different way.
That's a
And
good point.
so it's like, yes, I would love to sit down and make this different, but if they're asking for it and they need it and they need hope, even though there's been lots of books on discipleship. This is specifically preteens. This is specifically talking about sitting down and playing Mario Kart with them, which is a new thing for this generation. Whatever. It's just a new way to kind of share hope and truth with today's reader. And again, always thinking of the reader. So people like, I have this amazing true life story. Well, that's amazing, but what's in it for the reader? Like, what are
Yeah.
they going to take away from this? And so I think and I've written some other people's stories too. They're kind of memoir type books. But I'm always thinking like, how is this going to help the reader, give them something to take away to apply to their own life? So I think we can do things different, but also sometimes we try to overthink it and instead of
Right.
just
Yeah.
writing it and here you go, this is what you're asking for.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I really liked what you said about like the reader. Like it may be so familiar to you, but your reader might not know it and might not know all these stories
Yeah.
and these references. And
And it
so
helps
considering your audience.
speaking
I'm
at
sorry.
conferences really
Yeah.
helps because they're coming up with the questions afterwards. And like 100 people have talked about this. Like how good, but again, this is a new audience. This is a new generation. I remember when I was speaking in Florida in May, I feel like I've told the same stories over and over again of our personal stories, of our family stories, of adoption, of different God calling my daughter to be a missionary in Europe. I feel like I'm just repeating myself. And so like the last workshop is workshop number 5 I spoke at this conference. I'm like, how many of you have been in my other workshops at this convention? And it was a completely new crowd.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, good. I could tell you all the stories. And they were like coming up crying afterwards because that just meant so much. And I'm like, I have told that story 75 times, but not to
Yeah.
this audience, not to this generation, not to this reader. And it's an amazing story about how God showed up in our lives. And so I think it's okay if we kind of feel like we're repeating ourselves because it's a new audience that maybe never heard it. And even with our social
Yeah.
media, I don't know how many times I have to share whatever story or whatever about my family or caregiving, but maybe half
Some
of
people
my
haven't heard
audience have
it.
never even heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really I think that's freeing, I think, for us because I think we get so tired of our own stories. And I think there's a lot of pressure on writers to come up with new stories and new examples all the time. And maybe there's a balancing act that happens there, but there's new people who are reading your words and haven't heard your stories for the other 75 times. So I'd like to invite the ladies who are on this call with us. Carrie, do you want to start? You have this.
Well, what I had typed it in there earlier, but what have you said to no to and why? And you kind of about the same time I typed it in, you were kind of answering it a little bit like that one
Mhm.
thing that kind of went dark on you. But what kind of makes you say no to something and why do you say no to those things?
Yeah. If I pray about it and don't feel peace about it, that's a no. I'm also very cautious. There's different publishing houses, and I'm like, this sounds amazing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. like, yeah. If I look on their social media, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. That's another thing. And also, I've had things that I thought this is going to be amazing. Publishers are going to want it. So it wasn't even me saying no. But then later, I'm like, I'm so glad that God shut the door on that one. I've had people that wanted me to write books with them. And I'm like, I don't understand why a publisher's not picking up this book. And then like a couple of years later, they'll have like a moral failing. I'm like, oh, thank you, God. And so just
Mhm.
trusting that even rejection is protection or
Mhm.
rejection is redirection. Maybe God wants us doing something different. So really it is, and I think the closer we have a relationship with God where we can kind of fill those nudges where it could be, this doesn't make any sense, but this is what I'm going to work on, or this makes 100% of the sense and I just don't feel peace about it. So we're just not going to go there. And so it really is kind of just trusting that if God closes the door for a reason, or I feel like a pause on something for a reason, that He knows. He knows what's going to happen down the road.
That's a good point.
Mhm. Mhm.
Amy asked, do you want to ask that, Amy? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, you were talking about structure and fitting like nonfiction into a structure, which totally makes
Mhm.
sense. Is there like one structure in particular that's like, this is the magic one that everybody suggests? Or is it just the idea of like your nonfiction book, for not talking about devotional, should have some sort of consistent structure where every chapter starts this way and then has this piece? Like, can you mix around the pieces as long as it's consistent? Does that make
That's
sense?
just a really good question. Yes. So no, yeah, I would say don't mix around the pieces because there is. So I would say the general structure and do your research, but the general structure for like a non-fiction Christian self-help book is going to be 12 chapters. You're going to have a little intro, a letter to your reader, something like that. You're going to have your 12 chapters. You're going to have some type of conclusion. You might have some appendixes that have extra scriptures or something. Usually it's in 3 parts. So you have 4 chapters for each part. That's kind of like very typical of books. Devotions, like I mentioned, are certain things, but even nonfiction kids books, they're going to have usually that 12 chapters and I think this was another thing when I went to conferences, just like children's books. They're either going to be 8 pages, 16 pages, 32 pages. And that was because printers put a certain number of pages in. When you staple them, that's how many pages you get. Publishers, they know how much it costs for if your book is 50,000 words, trade paperback, they know how much that's going to cost to print it. So a lot of it, we're thinking like the creativity part of it, like I need 16 chapters because I need to share all these things. And they look at that and they see like, we don't do this. It's like you're shutting doors before they even get to read your stuff. If they open up and see your proposal and you have 32 chapters and it's going to be 100,000 words, they're like, yeah, that's a no before they even read the first page. So really understanding. And so I would tell people, and now on Amazon it's even easier, but I would tell people like, go to your bookstore, line up all the books, see how many chapters they have, see how they open, see if they have discussion questions or whatever. And it really is because publishers, they know how much things cost. They know what works for their reader. They know what type of style they like, conversational or more. Different publishers. Some publishers have conversational style books. Some publishers have more academic type books. I've not written for an academic publisher. That is not my style. That is not my audience. So again, but that format, I would say that 12 chapters is like a pretty common format.
But what about the structure of the chapters themselves?
Yeah, and I would say for Christian nonfiction, that opening with a story, having 3 points, having your second point, opening with another story, having 3 points, that's very common structure. So I would say look at books that have done really well in the genre you want to write and literally sit down and say, how many pages is this? How many chapters are this? So when I was at those writers conference, I did a article writing workshop that helped me too. So she's like, go get the magazine, whatever magazine you want to write for, count how many articles they have, how many are written by staff, how many are written by freelancers, how do those open? Do they open with a quote? Do they open with a story? Do they open with a statistic? So editors are used to seeing things they like. They publish things they like. They're used to certain formats. So if you know what different publishing houses like and what they publish, then again, they're going to pick you because you understand their format than someone else.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of market research. Now we have Amazon, which they have the look inside feature. So we don't have to drive to the bookstore. We can do a lot. And also Google Books. Has a lot of books on there. You can look and see different formats. So like think about a Max Lucado book. All his books are pretty much the same format with his little sweet stories that he tells that have, those heartwarming metaphors in them, and he's done very well.
Yeah, that's really true. I love doing that research on Amazon, and they used to give you like, sometimes it's hard. I think it's harder now to get to see the table of contents, at least on Amazon. Like often it has to be a review. Sometimes reviewers will post a picture of the
or
table
the
of
publisher's
contents.
website. Often the publisher's website
Mhm.
will have more pages. Also christianbook.com had more pages where you can actually look through. They'd have like 20 pages, like straight through I know Amazon will kind of like jump around or they'll stop a preview or different things. But yeah,
Yeah.
any of those kind of research is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Years ago, one of my friends, Tamara Alexander, she wanted to write for Bethany House Publishers. And she's a historical fiction writer. She wanted to write historical fiction for Bethany House. And so she went and read 80 Bethany House novels. and she
Quite
just
a
read
lot
them
of
all.
research.
And she just figured out this is because it's the same editors, right? They're the same editors that buy all the things that's published, that there's certain things that interest them. And her very first 3-book series that she pitched, Bethany House bought it, and then she's just done lots of wonderful books since then. But that's great research because you know what certain publishers want, because it's the editors, if it's the same editor all the way through, but it's the editors that are the ones choosing things to present to the publishing committee. Okay, so this is totally okay. So one of my editors at Tyndale, I consider her a friend. We love playing board games together. So when we go to conferences, we'll literally like bring a board game. She loves this board game named Everdale with little characters that are animals. So when I'm pitching some projects to her. What do you think I pitched? I pitched animal characters that are these adorable little animals. I know her. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, Talia is going to love this. And we'll see. I don't know. I haven't heard. She's pitching it. I haven't heard, but get to know these people too as people. Like, they like, what are they reading? If they talk about what books they're reading, one of the editors I used to work with, she's retired now, was talking about what she's reading for her book club. Go read that book, see what she loves. Like, they're people too. They're the ones that are actually buying your books. And when I talk to them, when I pitch things to them, I know who they are as people. So that's the things I'm going to highlight when I'm talking to them. So
Yeah.
and that's another
Super smart.
These are all the secret tips, guys.
These are stealthy tips. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Tricia, I wanted to ask you, you're going to be on the Writers Block on Thursday. So those who might watch this on YouTube later, we have a community inside the Writers Block where we offer extra teachings that are not available for public. They're for paid members only, but you're welcome to become a member. So what are you going to be teaching us on Thursday?
Do you remember what okay, this is another thing too. It's in my mind and then I move on. So actually I made the slides in like April.
Okay, well, we'll tell you what you're going to
Yeah,
teach.
you tell me, because I don't even remember. It's like I moved on to those. I'll remember when I find the slides again, but yeah.
You'll be ready by Thursday. So
I'll be
she's
ready
going
by
to talk to
Thursday.
us about eliminating brain power thieves to fuel your writing. So
It's going to be
yeah,
amazing. I don't even know
it's going to be amazing. And we can't wait.
Yes.
And then tell us a little bit. I'm going to put your website up here, triciagoyer.com. You can follow along. And then you also have an in-person writing retreat. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in October, the 22nd through the 25th, I'm doing an in-person writing retreat here in Central Arkansas. So part of it's going to be in my house, part of it's going to be at a retreat center. And I've gone to a lot of writing conferences, and they teach you about plot and character and all these things. I'm actually going to teach you like how to sit down and write. So all these things that we're talking about, I'm doing it with my friend Amber Leah, and she's a TV producer. She's also written, she's self-published books that have sold tens of thousands of copies for her self-published books. She's also worked with publishers, but we're both busy moms. And so we're actually going to we're going to brainstorm with people. Then we're going to have our times, like for 25 minutes, we're going to work on stuff and we're going to write stuff and we're going to give feedback. So I haven't seen anything like this out there, because often you go to a conference and it's information. This is going to be, we're going to brainstorm with you, and then we're going to have you actually sit and write. And so that's what we're going to be doing at this intensive. Get some work done. We're going to, it's called the Finish Line Intensive, because that's really what we want you to move to the finish line and not just keep those ideas in your mind or in your computer.
I love that. I mean, I wish I was closer, because that sounds awesome.
Come
and
on over. Yeah.
And I think there's so much like good energy that comes from just being in a group of in real life friends. So that sounds awesome. So check that out on Tricia's Facebook page, author Tricia Goyer, where you can find the link for that. Sign up there. So, well, thank you so much, Tricia. We have really enjoyed just learning from you and hearing about your life and your work. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
All right. We'll see everyone on Thursday.
See ya.
Are you ready to grow in the art and heart of writing? Visit us at mywritersblock.com to learn more about our memberships. We can't wait to see you around the block.